Jim Mitchum of Hatteras tells John Griffin about the U.S. Postal Service changing the names of Hatteras Island villages in the late 1800s.
I know of the Postal Service maps that came out in the 40s. How do you reference them?
Well, that's a real good question. They're really important. Back in the late 1800s, the Postal Service was establishing post offices up and down the Outer Banks. Well, they were kind of stuck with, what are we going to do here? We're going to record all these old Indian names for these different villages like Kinnikeet, Chickamaucomico. No, we're going to change names, kind of like a government decision just made it for just economical purposes. And it's a real shame because we've lost names like Kinnikeet. What did we get from the post office? We got Avon, A-V-O-N. So it's just a simple spelling. Chickamaucomico, I mean, what a great name. How do you replace that? You come up with names like Salvo or Waves or Rodanthe. And speaking of Rodanthe, where does that name come from? We have no idea. Is it on a whimsy from a post office employee or what? The name Trent, it used to be Trent, North Carolina, here on the Outer Banks. It's present-day Frisco. Why did they change the name from Trent to Frisco? Well, the reason for that is when they're establishing this post office down here in Frisco, there was already a Trent, North Carolina. It's over near Newbern. So they had to come up with another name. And local legend has it that the postmaster who had been assigned here on Hatteras Island was actually from or had been stationed in San Francisco. And the post office, they're saying, no, you're not getting to San Francisco. But so they settled on Frisco, North Carolina.
Great. Postal Service was in many ways a lifeline in the early days of Hatteras Island. How do you relate to that?
Well, there's another good question. You got to think about what time period we're talking about here. This is before Highway 12, right? So most of the post offices, practically all of them, were waterfront establishments. They were along docks and so forth. The post office in Hatteras Village was very close to Odin's Dock, right on the waterfront of Hatteras, right near the breakwater. There was a post office in Frisco, which was on the waterfront. It was down behind the present-day Native American Indian Museum in Frisco. The one in Buxton was behind the present-day post office on the waterfront. Matter of fact, there's a road right by the post office. It's called Mail Landing Road, and you had to go down to the waterfront. They didn't drive trucks up and down the highway. There was no highway, so they had to bring their mail in by boat. The one in Kinnikeet was in the village of Kinnikeet, very close to the waterfront, very close to the harbor, present-day harbor in Kinnikeet. The one on up in Chickamaucomico was right across the street and from the Chickamaucomico life-saving station. Their basic transportation was by boat. They certainly didn't drive up and down the highway in trucks.